Welcome to Distribution Talk with Jason Bader, the show where we dive into the stories, struggles, and solutions from business owners and thought leaders in the wholesale distribution market. Hey friends, Jason here. In this episode, I had the pleasure of speaking with Patricia Bible, owner and CEO of KaTom Restaurant Supply, located in Kodak, Tennessee. Patricia is one of those dynamic owners, just makes you feel like you're part of the family. After literally starting the company out of the garage, she and her husband built a very strong business with little distribution training or knowledge. They listened to advice, trusted their instincts, and learned on the fly. When her husband Tim fell ill and eventually passed, this resilient lady doubled down on the business and found a way not only to survive, but to thrive in the process. I enjoyed the conversation, and I suspect you will too. This episode is brought to you by HMI Performance Incentives. Unless you've been living under a rock, you've been exposed to some form of loyalty point system. What a lot of people don't understand is that these programs are not just for the big kids targeting consumers. Loyalty incentive programs are used by small to mid-sized organizations focusing on the B2B market each and every day. From service contractors to stylists, plant engineers to purchasing agents, incentive systems work. You can learn more about HMI performance incentives at www.hmiaward.com or connect with them on LinkedIn at HMI Performance Incentives. Be sure to let them know you heard about them from me, Jason Bader, on the Distribution Talk podcast. All right, Patricia. Hey, welcome to Distribution Talk. Thank you so much for taking the time with me today.
Happy to be here, Jason. Thank you so much for the invitation.
One of the things I like to start out with is, why did you get involved in distribution? What is your story?
Oh, it's very interesting. They always say that when God closes a door, he opens two windows, and sometimes he dangles you from about the 20th story, and you're like, what do I do? That's kind of what happened to me. Actually, I was a waitress. Worked at
Okay.
Western Sizzlin' Steakhouse. My husband and I built those, and part of the gig was we had to get them functional once we finished the building process. Functional meant that we had to train the meat cutter, the salad people, and the waitresses. Well, I worked in the salad area and training the waitresses. So, how do you stack at that time 10, 15 steaks on your arm and get them to a party of 12, etc.?
I've always wondered that. I've
Yeah.
never figured that one out. So,
And how do you wear high heels when you're doing all of that
oh
stuff?
my,
So,
haven't had to try that one yet.
yeah,
So,
we're gonna have to try that on for you. So, transition after the building process, came back home and decided that we were done with the last 15 years of travel. We were gonna hang out at home, work in our stores that we had some interest in, several
mhm,
stores. So we would bounce from store to store, checking on quality and different
sure.
things, buying, purchasing, etc. Out of that arose a need from all of our friends because at the time, Hamlin County or Morristown, Tennessee, had the most Western Sizzlin' Steakhouse franchisees that there were in any concentrated area. So all of these guys knew my husband very, very well, and they called and they would say, "Hey, Tim, you got the store open for us, but we need some Rubbermaid containers. We need a bun coffee pot. We need this. We need that. We need a set of shelving. We need a new slicer." And so Tim, being the accommodating person he was, he loved to do anything that was new and exciting. At the time, that was new and exciting to him. So he would get out and source those items for his friends. And the very first company we set up with was Rubbermaid, believe it or not. That would be very difficult to do today. So distribution in the late 80s was a 4,000 square foot garage, of
Mhm.
which had
Yeah.
4 garage doors. So we cleaned everything out of one and put the Rubbermaid in. And the second company we set up with was Bun-O-Matic. People needed coffee makers. So
Sure.
we opened up a second bay, and supply chain as we know it today was pure old garaging
Yeah.
back then.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Sure.
I did all the books while I was
Mhm.
raising 2 young children, and he did this sourcing, and he just loved it. And then the day the 4th garage door opened and he pulled his love race car out of that. The game was on. He was
Yeah.
like, "Okay, I've done this free gratis for all of my friends for now a year and a half.
Yeah.
Let's make a business out of it." So we found a small 6,000 square foot building, which we went
Mhm.
from garaging to warehousing at the
Okay.
time. I remember walking in the first day and I said, "Tim, what in the world are we going to do with all of this space?" It just seemed like such an anomaly to us. But then within months, we had it filled with every brand you could possibly imagine. And then we decided we were going to develop this little flyer, which was an 11.5 by 17 tabloid style flyer. He
Mhm.
loved technology, so Apple, of course, was the rage back then, and
Sure. Yeah.
so he got busy with that, and by that time, our children were in middle school. Our daughter took a real love to that, so he and her would set up at night and lay out pages and have the best time, and so then we began to think supply chain. What is this supply chain thing?
Sure.
So after that, we continued to grow. Unfortunately, Tim's passing came in 2001, and
Mhm.
I was forced into distribution. Well,
Yeah.
distribution at our place was aisles that were about 16 to 18 inches apart, so not very
Okay.
wide.
Yeah,
It was
yeah.
enough to get up one side and down the other. The warehouse
Mhm.
we had built on, and it was at that point in time 27,000 square feet, and there might have been 10 items on one shelf. No opportunity to know what anything was. So I spent an entire summer. He had just had open heart surgery. He and the children went to Hilton Head. I
Right.
stayed behind, ran the company. I organized every shelf, put
Mhm.
labels on every shelf. Not because I knew what I was doing. So don't get confused by that, Jason, because I
Okay.
did not have a clue. I
This was just effort. Yeah, this was
yeah,
just yeah,
it
a
was
lot of effort. Yeah.
purely effort. So a
Mhm.
lot of trial and error, and then Tim's passing in 2001, I knew we had to
Mhm.
relocate. That 27,000 square foot, we were doing 27 turns a month. I mean, we knew how to move merchandise.
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
It
yeah,
came
yeah.
in, it went out, usually the same day. So it was a fine oil machine, still didn't know what supply chain was. I
Right.
did know enough to know we needed more space.
Yeah.
So went on a hunt for a true distribution center,
Mhm.
found the right fit, 70,000 square feet in
Mhm.
Kodak, Tennessee, hired an expert out of, Montana, and he
Okay.
flew in and he helped us with this newfound word, supply chain. And we were
Nice.
off to the races. We thought we were the top bananas, but Jason, there was one problem.
Hmm.
We were a small wares distributor or
Mhm.
dealer at that time. When he came in and set up our new distribution center, he
Right.
put all of the shelves 4.5 foot apart. Well, how many smallwares are you going to get with 4.5 foot? So it didn't take long for us to send him back up
Mhm.
north and for us to say, "Oh my gosh, we paid all this money, we didn't get what we thought we needed," and so we started doing a lot of self-examination, got the team together, figured out
Yeah.
how to truly build a distribution center, worked with their ERP system, worked with their developers. They helped with the slotting, helped with all of the processes that needed to happen to have
Mhm.
true distribution. So, and now that what we built here at 70,000 square feet or what we bought at the time has now
Right.
turned out to be 160,000 square feet, and it is full and running over, and we're looking to add our next 100,000 hopefully before year end.
So you're shooting, to actually add that on to your existing building.
We are, yes, sir.
Now, is it do you have other locations, or is it just you just keep expanding this one? The Frankenstein keeps getting bigger and bigger.
You're exactly right. That's exactly what we're doing. We have sat around the boardroom table and had those
Mhm.
conversations of, do we touch the West Coast? We're here in Kodak, Tennessee, which is pretty much kind of between that East and Middle Tennessee.
Mm.
Most all of our packages reach their destination within 3 days, which is a nice sweet point.
It
Is it
is,
as
yeah.
good as we would like it to be? No. And there is consideration of doing a West Coast operation, and that's part of the future, I think.
Do you think that you would, speaking of an opportunity there, would you prefer to do an acquisition, or do you think maybe a greenfield startup, distribution center, maybe in Nevada or something like that, where you can get inventory tax for, the Sparks inventory tax zone and things like that?
Interesting that you asked that
Okay.
question because not only have we looked at both of those, we have also looked at a third-party solution that
Yeah, there you
they
go.
would actually do all this for us. So it's
Mhm.
in the early stages, but there's a lot
Mhm.
of bantering that goes on, a lot of what does that bring to us? How does finance look at it? How does the
Yeah.
distribution team look at it? How does HR look at it? There's a lot of moving pieces to make that work appropriately, but it's certainly worth the look, and we're
It
excited
is.
about what the future brings.
It sure is. And, there's although ideally and really from a sanity standpoint, being under one roof is actually kind of nice.
I
You know,
love
the
it.
minute the minute you go for multiple, it just the headaches, compound. I mean, and I grew up, 9 locations over 4 states, and a lot of the clients I work with, multiple locations. One's got 40 locations. I'm thinking that's 40 more headaches than I need. I don't want that. But,
There's a lot to say for under one roof.
oh yeah.
Although it's not simple, it is simple. I can get up from my desk, be in the distribution center in 6 to 7 minutes, walk the entire distribution center several times a day, see what the pain points are. I
Yep.
think that would be a little more difficult for what we're looking at. Of course, my son, who is 35, is a huge advocate of Utah or anywhere that has snow. He said, "Hey, mom, you
Right,
send
right.
me out
Good.
there, I will be there. I'll take care of that." And I said, "Yeah, I can hear it now. You'll be coming down the side of the slopes, and all I will hear is swoosh, 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 instead
Yeah.
of how many refrigerators have you sold today?"
Man after my own heart, I tell you, and something you'd mentioned, about that third party, possibility. I had a client that did that in Las Vegas, and they were out of Florida, and they did this, and it worked okay for a while. They just had, it's not easy though, really trying to have your level of quality control in a third party facility. It's just not the same as having it under your own roof or with your own employees managing it. So,
I think you are so right about there. There's a level of disconnect there
yeah,
that they may think they're world class, and they're world class. What I
right.
have noticed is extremely different than what we consider world class
Yeah,
in the
yeah.
ones that we have interviewed thus far. So you're right. It's a great point.
I don't want to disparage those businesses because I think that, they do serve a need in many cases. But I would have to agree with you. I just, that was really his complaint as well. He just said it wasn't our people, it was just not the same level. But he did it successfully for a lot of years. And, it may be a consideration for you. Also when you get into doing your own, you got the headaches. And if it doesn't fly, you still have a shell, you have a lease on, and you've
That's
got some
exactly
things.
right. There's so
Yeah.
much to consider, and it's nothing that I wanna just jump out and do with a quick snap of a finger. It's something that literally we have these same discussions, exactly what you're speaking of, as well as what's involved in the greenfield, meaning what tax advantages are out there. What can we really bring to the table from that standpoint? So
Yep.
so there's so much to consider about making that jump. But again, right now, I am happy with this nice one location that we have now got this. I know when we moved from the big facility to here, we dropped to about 16 turns per
Yeah,
month. But
yeah.
now we're back up to where we were.
That's
So
great.
we're really
That's great.
excited about that, and I just love seeing that.
So, actually, that kind of begs a question in that single facility. Because sometimes, when you're in that single facility, we start banging into each other. We start bumping heads as you grow, with the number of employees, that are required to manage that level of business. That all of a sudden you start having the Keystone cops out there in the in that warehouse, especially if you're going on a traditional, 8 to 10 hour day. Have
Mhm.
you all gone to multiple shifts in that location?
Well, what we do here is we do a 12-hour shift, and actually, to be quite honest, it's a 14-hour shift because we have a team that comes in really early, takes
Mhm,
all of
mhm.
our truckload shipments in, all the
Yeah.
LTL shipments, so they have all that cleaned up within that first couple of hours, and then we start with our pickers, our packers, our stockers, our receivers, they all come in
Mhm,
between
mhm.
7:30 and 8, and then we stagger from there up until 11:30, and then they are here until 8 p.m. in the evening. So we
Gotcha.
cycle through
Okay.
those that have children that want and need to get off early, those in some cases part-time that wanna come in
Mhm.
and work from 4 until 8. We cover that entire cycle, which has been very nice. There is also on the drawing board that second full-time shift, which would take us until midnight. So it's getting closer and closer to that,
Yeah,
Jason.
yeah.
Again, something that is so important to me, and I somehow suspect it will be to you also, is culture.
Oh,
Having that
yeah.
consistent culture throughout our company, no matter what the hours are, no matter what department you're in, that everybody's singing off the same page of the hymn book, and
Yeah.
that there truly is consistency and that there's unity amongst the team is very important to us, Jason.
Well, and I think that speaks to your under one roof desire. Really, you go out there on the West Coast and we're a little off over here. We're a little strange out here. I
I've
don't know
seen
if
you
our
on TV, let me tell you.
Yeah, yeah, I know. We're crazy out here. So yeah, that might challenge your culture. I mean, and that's
Yeah.
something to definitely consider. But also as you're right, expanding to that second full shift that may not have the exposure with the preponderance of employees, the the
Mhm.
the core group. Yeah, there may be a little bit of shoring up you're going to need, or just be very aware of it. Just
I
be
think you're
very,
right, it
yeah,
will, and, I've had several conversations with their HR gurus to say, "How do
yeah,
we keep the consistency as clear and
mm,
clean as it can?" So, it's another topic for another day, but it is
yeah.
truly, I think, coming much quicker than I had really expected it to come.
Well, and I would always encourage you to look at something like that. I have seen companies, and frankly, my family business I grew up in, I mean, it was a game changer when we actually extended those hours to that midnight 1 o'clock. It
Mhm.
was There's magic that occurs outside of the traditional working hours,
Mhm.
unencumbered by customers, salespeople, unencumbered. Man, out in that distribution center, you can get a whole lot of stuff done when people aren't bugging you. So,
Amen to that. So,
yeah,
and getting that inventory cleaned up and always consistent
yeah.
because there's something every day. There's a missing this, too much of that. I mean, I really think that our distribution center sometimes sprouts babies out there. Whether
Yeah.
I'm like, "How do you get 3 extra coffee makers?" Or, "How did we
Yeah.
get 4 dozen this?" So, it is constantly a shuffle and a challenge, making sure that everything is as up to par as possible.
And sometimes you wind up with things on the shelf that I don't recall ever buying this in the first place.
Oh, I know, or where did
Yeah.
this come from? Where did this 1 inch of dust that I
Yeah.
thought we were going through this warehouse on a consistent basis, keeping all of the inventory clean, rotated out, and then all of a sudden, there it is.
So, Patricia, do you have a, retail, presence there at the company?
We actually do. We
Okay.
call it chef supplies.
Okay.
It's really
Okay.
something that the locals come in. I'm on I-40, which is a
Okay.
major 4-lane here in East Tennessee. I-26 feeds into it, I-75 feeds into it. So we really hit all of the southeastern states, and people travel that I-40, I-75, I-81
Mhm.
corridor all the time. So we're right there at a trifecta, so to speak,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
we really garner a lot of the passerbys that find us for that first time. But then we
Sure.
also out of that, it has been amazing to me how many chains, how many larger opportunities just because we're sitting here on the front of the interstate that,
Mhm.
you think your presence is so well known, whether it's through e-commerce or your sales staff, and yet daily. there are big opportunities that show up in our parking lot. So it's
Yeah.
really, really interesting. We're very blessed to be where we are, Jason.
Yeah, those comments, "Wow, I didn't know about you all. I'm so happy I found you."
Yeah,
You're thinking, "Wait a minute, how much money do I spend on self-promotion?" And you just drove by.
exactly,
Yeah, I guess it goes
exactly.
back to that
Hey,
location, location, location comment. So
it does, and you get it however you can, to be quite
absolutely, yeah.
honest. You look at every marketing tool, whether it's from within yourself, within your team, the interstate, e-commerce, wherever it is, you take advantage of everything, Jason.
May not be fancy, but it works, but
It
it's
does.
there.
It
So
does.
well, the reason I had asked about that retail presence, sometimes there tends to be a little bit of a conflict or confusion sometimes when we have, retail presence and a lot of customer walk in, will call. And then the distribution side, that I think that sometimes there's a little bit of a balancing act between that. Have you found that to be a little bit of a challenge in your organization?
We certainly have found that to be a challenge. In fact, we have had to assign associates that only deal with that retail presence because it became so disruptive.
Yeah.
You would be picking and packing and doing all this and stocking, and yet retail would call and that person is right there. They've got 3 small restaurants locally. They need that hot dog roller. They need
Right.
that grill. They need that refrigerator. So we
Yeah.
found that it became such an interruption and it really kind of messed up that entire flow of the supply chain. So we had to assign a team that does nothing but that retail presence. And that's
Yeah.
worked out so much better than where we were before.
I think that's smart because really there's also a certain personality that really can interact with the public a little bit better, and they're willing to listen and they're willing to, see, touch, and feel, and they're do better. Those of us in the spin inventory world, man, we don't want anything to do. Our life is great when there's nobody around and we can get all kinds of stuff done.
You're exactly right. There are a couple of places of the company I really try to avoid, and it's retail and HR.
Yeah, yeah, I hear you.
But
I
I
absolutely.
love it all. I love it all, but
Yeah.
those are the pieces that somebody else is better suited to because I'm like you, I wanna churn, I wanna burn,
Yep.
and that's not always conducive to the person that wants to look at 14 tongs and check out that one's a quarter of an inch longer or one has some claws on the end, the other one doesn't quite spring as much, so the retail business is so difficult and
Oh,
different.
yeah. It does. It reminds me, it's funny. It reminds me of the beauty business. I spend a lot of time around the beauty supply business, and the preference business is really what I look at. It's again, see, touch, and feel characteristics. Is that tongue larger than the other one?
Yeah.
How's that going to feel in my hand? And oh, that would drive me crazy. I just,
It
look,
is.
just get it in. Give me it. Can I ship this in full box? That's all I really care about. Do I have to break this box or not? That's
Yeah,
really what I care about.
exactly. That is
Yeah.
the thing. Oh, and then they bring it back the next day. I really decided I needed that one that was 8.5 inches, not the 8-inch one.
Totally.
But it's
That's
good.
the stuff.
We're always learning. Our customers
Yeah.
are teaching us. They are tremendous professors. We
Yeah.
learn so much from our customers. We're so blessed to have them.
Well, and I think if you have the opportunity to have that test kitchen type of environment, you can see and touch and feel things. Yeah, there is an advantage to that over, just having that nice cold spinning warehouse. You've got, well, what is this stuff? And frankly, some of your associates on your distribution side can learn a lot about the products.
Well, they
Yeah.
really can, and we use it as a platform for other items. We will bring in large groups of people, and maybe it's an Altosham, maybe a Vector oven, maybe it's a Blodgett, maybe it's a particular refrigerator that fits in a perfect size, and they'll bring 15 or 20 of their chains in. They want to see it, they want to touch it, they want to feel it. We bring in a chef. They wanna see how quick that pizza can come through. They wanna know, will it only do a 12-inch, a 14-inch? Can I get a 16? this is really what I need for the volume. So it really works well from that standpoint. And then through that same retail store, we do cooking demonstrations. So we bring in
Okay.
local
Nice.
chefs, and that's a fun thing for the neighborhood to really enjoy. And especially during COVID, they're very small sessions, and it's just a lot of fun to
Yep.
bring that in. So we have that opportunity to do so many different things that are both commercial and more of what your street presence would enjoy. We'll do baking
Yeah.
classes sometimes, and during the winter months, we do knife sharpening classes. So, it's a different side of the company that runs a little more melancholy,
Mhm.
easier. We do a lot of speeches, whether it is me speaking to a leadership group, whether one of
Mhm.
my distribution people come in and they do a supply chain presentation,
Mhm.
e-commerce presentation, whatever that is, we try to accommodate the things that the local 10 counties need and really enjoy having a part of it, whether it's Chamber of Commerce or many, many other organizations. We have leadership severe, leadership tomorrow, all of those, and it's a great springboard for those
Mhm.
young people. University of Tennessee will bring a group through. Carson Newman University, we are very richly endowed with universities in our area, and they
Yeah.
love getting to see, to touch, and to understand, this restaurant equipment and supply business is different than what
Mm.
I thought. It's not standing behind the grill 12
Right.
hours a day.
Right.
There's
Right.
another side to hospitality that
Yeah.
certain people are really looking for. So we try to showcase that as frequently as we possibly can.
That's fantastic because, I've said with a couple of guests, and I've talked about this for years as I've been teaching, is that distribution has a PR problem. That, these are really great careers, but they're the best kept secret, from any young person, that I've ever seen.
You are so right. And what we have found out of this, Jason, by doing this community interaction as we do,
Mhm.
and we do it in so many different presentations, our millennial workforce is now 56% of our entire workforce. That's pretty powerful when you think in this industry, you don't have the baby boomers, such as
Mhm.
myself, the Gen X's.
That would
You've
be
got
me.
that
Yeah,
next,
that's me.
yeah. You've got that next group that's coming up that
Yeah.
they really haven't been exposed to the value of hospitality. Great day. We're the second largest employer there is in our country. Why wouldn't we open the doors for this team to see what is next? This evening, University of Tennessee is bringing their sales forum through, and they tour the entire company. They look for internships for the summer programs that we offer, whether it
Mhm.
is in the supply chain or whether it's our inside sales team. It may be riders on the e-com side, but they all get to have a touch of what KaTom is about and what are the different opportunities. That's something else I think we haven't done a good job of training our next generation, and that is it's not standing in a stale showroom anymore. It's not
Right.
standing behind a dusty counter. There really is so much movement. Amazon has taught us all to do things very differently and
Yeah.
to do things from an enticing standpoint, and to
Mhm.
include those millennials in conversation and listen to their feedback. I have found is a wealth of knowledge to the company as a whole.
Absolutely. And the nice thing about that group, I mean, a lot of people like to bash on millennials, but I think one of the qualities I love so much is they are just wonderful collaborators.
Yes.
Whereas, my generation, we're cynical. My Gen Xers are cynical. We don't like to play with others. We are not good collaborators. I'm a
I'm
terrible
better
team
than
player.
you.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. We have a self-importance in there. Whereas the millennials, although sometimes they think that they need to find that entry-level CEO position, they tend to be wonderful collaborators. And to your point, that boy, if you are willing to ask for their opinion and ask them to look at something, they're all in,
Oh,
all
yeah.
in.
I think they're the most brilliant group of individuals because they're not afraid of anything. They've
Yeah.
been taught to stand up and say, "Hey, I don't have to wait 20 years to be heard. I can
Right.
be heard now." And it really is refreshing. We have enjoyed it immensely.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think again, once people can get past the fear of bringing those folks in and really just put the ego aside, and let them share their ideas. They're brilliant. And
They are. I'm
yeah.
telling you, I truly believe they're the most brilliant generation I have ever worked with. It's really cool.
Oh, that's great. One of the things that you commented on earlier about the different ways to attract customers in and to really the marketing channels there. E-commerce was something that you all took on, several years ago. I mean, wasn't it back early 2000s that you went down that trail?
2001, December 1st. I will never
Gotcha.
forget it as long as I live.
Yeah, yeah. That was a big move.
Let me just share that with you very quickly. Tim was a visionary, and
Mhm.
back then, all you didn't hear the word e-commerce. It was the internet, remember? It was
Right,
all
right.
about Al Gore had invented this big wispy
Yeah.
thing in the sky and all this stuff. Well, Tim was very techy and a visionary, and he was so enthralled by this. He said, if this ever catches on, people aren't going to go into a standard store. Most people are really going to utilize
Right.
this. Well, our industry at the time was somewhat archaic, and they said, Tim, you are foolish. Nobody is ever going to buy a fork and spoon off that internet thing you're talking about, let alone a refrigerator. And of course, now KaTom has proven that all to be wrong. We're the second largest e-commerce player in our industry. And I've got to tout just a little second here,
Mhm,
ran by a beautiful young millennial
mhm.
female who is
Yeah.
my daughter.
Oh, good. Oh, there you go. Keep it in the family.
That's right. Got that next generation coming up.
Good. Yeah, it's definitely people who embraced it at an early on. And there was a lot of confusion as to what it really should be and how it should function and what was it going to do in your organization. But, it's so interesting. And anyone who was adept at it last year
Oh,
benefited heavily.
yes, you're so right
Heavily.
about that.
Last year, if you had your e-com game on, you did better than others, depending on your industry, of course. So,
You're exactly right. I think it propelled e-commerce forward somewhere between 3 and 7 years, to be quite frank. And as
yeah,
you
yeah.
said, those that had a very prominent position there did extremely well, and those that were getting their feet wet really grew during that period of time. So it's been a very different last 12 months that we've seen lots of things change. And we have had
Mhm.
to dig deep within ourselves to become better and to look at the world through a different set of eyes.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I think we've become, online collaborators. We have become all of these different things. Whereas, we maybe had opportunities to network face to face before. Today, we have learned other ways to do it. E-commerce, was kind of a catalyst there. And obviously, the Zoom meeting phenomenon, is the same. Lots of different changes in this last year. But for the hospitality industry, you all took a big kind of a beating on this
Oh,
last year.
did we ever? KaTom was fortunate enough to be on the upside of things, so that was quite a blessing. Didn't exactly start out that way. It was really
Mhm.
late February when the rumblings began, and then, of course, by the time we got into the 2nd week in March, we knew that we were in for a doozy, or at least that's
Yeah.
what we thought, is how is this gonna turn out? Are we gonna go spiraling? Are we gonna be able to come together? Are we gonna be able to collaborate? Are we gonna come together with new thoughts, new changes, new
Yeah.
formatting to take this company forward, and with a lot of collaboration? And to be quite honest, it was a cultural shift at KaTom
Mhm.
because it forced us. We thought we were good at it before, but we weren't nearly as good as we thought we were. It forced us to bring every segment of the company together and intimately
Yeah.
work through the processes. Number one, the whole world's shutting down. What does the world need? Well, they need paper supplies and they need sanitation.
Yep.
both of which we weren't very adept at. So I
Mhm.
brought the purchasing department together. They ended up being able to source containers and tractor trailer loads of both of those items. And then we developed our own hand sanitation, which didn't come with just picking up the phone and calling, but we found a gin company that had been shut down the week before because nobody was buying their gin. We found a company in Knoxville, Tennessee, which is right outside of where we were, that they were a tasting room, but they
Yeah.
had a large back area where we were able to, what we called the juice, ship it in huge containers.
Yeah.
Well, the people that could bottle it for us didn't have the bottles, so we had to get very creative. So we air freighted all that stuff in, built the brand. Our e-commerce department immediately went to work on making sure the labeling was correct, logoing was
Mhm.
fantastic, all the things that we'd never done before.
No.
So from conception to our actual first was that we gave it to our local communities, the fire
Mhm.
departments, the police departments, the hospitals, to help with those scary moments in the very beginning, and
Sure.
it was exactly 12 days. And that's moving the boat when you think of all those factions having to come together to make this new branded product, labeling and all, in 12 days. And
That's
then we
crazy.
hit the street with it and sold millions of gallons.
So, I mean, looking back, let's say that we were sitting here in 2019, and for you to say, "Hey, we are going to be able to bring a brand new product that we really don't know a darn thing about, and a private label product, and we are going to get it on the street in less than 2 weeks." Unheard of. Absolutely unheard of. You've been laughed out of the room. Absolutely laughed out of the room.
You are so right, and had we not truly had that cultural shift of
Yeah.
really being forced together to survive. At that point in time, we thought it
Yeah.
was survival, and
Mhm.
and it really remained that way for a few weeks until this thing really took off, turned around, and then ended up in a very strong position by the end of the year. It was very rewarding.
So, how do we harness that going forward? I mean, where's the next 2-week project? I'm looking. It's like, all right, you proved it. You proof of concept. Your folks can come together in survival mode and go after something that is relatively foreign territory to you. So, what's next? How do you
I
do
think it's
this
that
next?
collaborative piece of it that's going to be critical. I
Yeah,
think it's taking off that owner's hat, taking off that, "Oh, I'm large and in charge" attitude and saying,
yeah,
"Hey, team, come in. Give me your thoughts. I wanna know, there is no stupid thought. Lay it on
right.
the table. Put your gift of thought on the table, and then let's hash through those thoughts, and let's come up with what is the next big thing." So that exact same thing happened. Probably 45 days in, team comes back together. Okay, we survived this. We not only got back to a flat line, we began to grow. Where do we see the next big opportunity? Well, it was inventory, because
Mhm.
what were people doing? People were shutting down all over the country, not bringing
Right.
in merchandise. We took the opposite attitude. We said, pull together all of our resources and bring in everything we could find. And
Mhm.
we looked for specific items, and it paid tremendous benefits.
Oh, absolutely. It's interesting you say that. So back in 08, 09, big recession and, big beatings there. And I had a client that was a lumber distributor. And again, all lumber distributors, again, construction related markets, they're getting rid of inventory as fast as they possibly can. They are shrinking for survival, just as, we would have assumed. That was kind of the conventional wisdom of inventory management. When we run into a situation like that, dump the inventory, get the cash in the building. And I met this gentleman up in Wisconsin, and he said, "No, we're going to double down. We're going to let everybody else do that." But, and as an inventory consultant, I was like, "Oh, no, no, you're doing the wrong way." And then he came back, he said, "No, I think I got something better, Jason." All right. So he went out, he doubled down, and he came out on the backside with basically what he did is used it to take market share. And,
Mhm.
and he he just absolutely crushed it on the backside of this thing. So it was one of those lessons that I've always remembered and thought about that, just as you were saying, you know, maybe that conventional wisdom of dumping the inventory in times of crisis, not such a smart idea.
No, I don't think it is, and Jason, I think what we probably learned or what I took away from 2020 was fear can paralyze you, and
Yeah.
every time we turned on the radio, flipped on the newscast, talked to our best friend on the phone, it was fear, 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 and you have to somehow figure out how to navigate through or around that because
Yeah.
it will stop you. So I kind of held up in my boardroom with my team and said, "Hey, go find me every refrigerator you can get in this building. Go find
Yeah.
me every roll of toilet paper you can get in this building. Go find me every oven you can get in this building." And so we took that attitude without being waylaid by that fear factor that was
Yeah.
going on. And it's so easy. I remember what you talked about earlier. I laughed when you said 2008, 2009. January the 8th of 2009, there are very few dates that I can remember. Usually it's my children's birthday and that's it. But
Hmm.
January the 8th, 2009, I brought my team in. Same team I've got right now, same senior team. I said,
Yeah.
"Guys, I'm going to roll the dice. I'm going to take everything I own. I'm going to take everything you own. I'm going to dump it into this company and we're either going to flop together or we're going to ride high together." The
Mhm.
same thing happened in 2009 that happened in 2020. Put the darn fear behind you. That's not to say that COVID isn't real, it is real,
Yeah.
but there are still needs. There are
Yeah.
still people that are seeking out that way to make a living, whether they're working from home or working out of a rented building or working out
Sure.
of that opportunity for to-goes or drive-throughs,
Yeah.
etcetera.
Yeah.
There's
Yeah.
still those pockets of business out there, and how do we
Mhm.
go out and really massage that, find that, cultivate that, and make it work to our good is what I found was the big win of 2020. That was the big cultural shift of KaTom in 2020.
That's fantastic, and, I think that's going to serve, the next generation very well, that you can just share that story and just make sure they never forget, that,
Yeah.
push that fear aside and let's keep going, just one foot in front of the other.
And you
Well.
saw it both times. You saw it in
Oh, yeah.
2008, you saw it in 2020.
Yep.
And in both times, you're here to say, "This was the right way to do," although it feels like the wrong thing. I'm a
Absolutely.
private pilot, and when you're stalling, you don't pull back, you push down. And if you
Yeah.
don't push down, you think you're gonna hit the ground, it's the only thing that saves you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Maybe that's where I got that.
Yeah, maybe so. No, maybe so, and it's funny those little lessons that you take from other parts of your life,
Yeah.
that might be in there. Well, Patricia, before I let you go, I wanted to ask about your speaking. It was really around that community involvement, and in this case, it was your industry involvement. You've been involved with FIDA, the association, for a number of years. Tell me, why did you raise your hand? Why did you say, "I want to get involved with my association and give back"?
Well, FIDA is an amazing organization, and I am such a big, big fan of Tracy Mulqueen's. She
Mhm.
absolutely works hard, turns over every rock, is passionate about what she does. She is
Mhm.
a woman leader in a man's world. And I
Mhm.
always have a special admiration for that. And I'm not saying that women are better than men because I absolutely adore you guys. You are the cutest things I've ever seen. But
Not the
sometimes
smartest, but we
yeah,
can be cute.
but sometimes it can be rather challenging
Yeah.
working in that environment. And Tracy has done an amazing job. And when she asked me if I would join, I really gave it a lot of thought. And I thought,
Mm,
I'm overcommitted here, I'm overcommitted there.
mm,
But there is an advocacy level that is so important, and never was it as important as it was in 2020. And I
mhm,
think the extension into 2021 is
mhm,
also going to be vital and critical to this industry, whether it's working with NAFM or NRA or
mhm.
AutoQuotes or all the different facets that we see that are so important working with buying groups, working with individual dealers, working with the vendor partners, working with the
Mhm.
manufacturers, hearing all of the great things that are out there, but also recognizing the challenges and seeing, is there a way to do it different than the old guard has set in place? And I challenge myself with that every day. I don't point
Mhm.
fingers at anybody. I've got a big sign in my boardroom that says, Patricia, you're better than this. And I see that every morning when I come into work, Jason. And
Yeah.
that is to remind me only that I can be better today than I was yesterday. And
Mhm.
Patricia, don't ever become complacent.
Mhm.
Always look to see how you can serve, how you can be a part of this industry that has so
Mm.
served me well. And then you've
Right.
got the young leaders. I have 2 mid-30-year-olds that are part of this company that adore the company. I mean, it's been their bread and butter. They both worked in the warehouse from the time they were old enough to stand. They have worked throughout the company even when they were both in college. I remember
Mhm.
they would be in the back of our motorhome keying in addresses for mailing list. So to have that opportunity for young leaders that
Yeah.
VITA offers is just a powerful, powerful opportunity. The education piece that they offer, the gathering together and bringing in top notch speakers from
Mhm.
all over the country. I learned more about supply chain through FIDA and FIDA speakers than any other thing I did. Like I told you, I hired the hot shot that came in
Yeah.
from up north, fell on his face. But through those conversations and through those presentations that I have sat in at FIDA, it has revolutionized KaTom. And I'm just thrilled,
Yeah.
thrilled to see where it is going, where it has came from. And Ray Herrick was an amazing man. Loved
Mhm.
Ray to no end. And he set the path, he set the pattern, and now Tracy has came along behind him and taken that mantra and moving it forward to that next level, that next
Mhm.
opportunity, that next inclusion that really serves our industry well, Jason.
Yeah, she's definitely in the few years that, she's been at the helm, she's definitely changed the direction of the organization
Yeah,
and really, moved it along its logical path. I mean, I think that's one of the things that I've enjoyed about working with her over the years is
yeah,
that, seeing that, recognition of opportunity and then saying, okay, how are we going to get there? And sometimes, having members of that organization say, well, what are you doing? Why are you upsetting the apple cart? This
yeah.
isn't comfortable.
Mhm.
That's what I think I've enjoyed is watching her push that envelope just a little bit, to maybe make people a little uncomfortable so that they'll start thinking about things a little differently.
Well, I love that, and I also love the opportunities. I was fortunate enough to be in Washington, D.C. with her and to meet with senators and to meet with
Yeah.
lawmakers and to be on the floor and to see how things really work behind the scenes and to know that that is such an important facet of our industry. Well, who knew?
Right.
So
Oh,
I
yeah.
yeah, really find that there have been some opportunities that have just been amazing under her leadership. I've really, really
Yeah.
enjoyed that there's somewhat of a full plate way of doing the presentation. And that's not to say that this leader is better than the last leader or the leader before that
Not
one
at
or the
all.
leader
Yeah.
before that one. It's that she has changed with the times.
Yeah.
And we have changed so much, our industry has, in the last 10 years. Really the
Mhm.
last 20, but the last 10 and this last 18 months has been phenomenal. And if we're not changing along with that, if we're doing the same old thing the same old way, we're not gonna get those dynamic results. So I think I have watched her embrace the changes that are coming, even though that's hard.
Yep.
Change is hard, and who
Yep.
likes it? Who wants to do that? But she's a footprint that's willing to go forward with that, and I'm
Uh,
appreciative of that.
yeah, I couldn't agree more. I've just, as I said, really enjoyed that relationship with her. Well, thank you so much for taking the time with me. This has been fantastic. I really appreciate you sharing some of
I've
the
loved it,
ideas.
Jason.
Yeah,
Thank you for
good.
thinking of me, and I hope you have the best year ever in 2021.
Thank you. Appreciate
Take
it.
care. Bye, darling.
Thank you for listening. If you liked what you heard, consider hitting that subscribe button. Links to sponsors, products, and services mentioned during this episode can be found in the show description area on your podcast application or at www.distributiontalk.com. Distribution Talk is edited and mixed by Andrea Klunder and Edwin Ruiz at the Creative Imposter Studios. This episode was brought to you by my company, The Distribution Team. We are a consulting services firm dedicated to helping wholesale distribution clients remove barriers to profitability, generate wealth, and achieve personal goals. To learn more about how we can help your company succeed, check us out at www.thedistributionteam.com.